So I'll go first. My name is Sinjin. I'm CEO of MaxPlay, and our engine today is best at not being distributed to any users external from our company. I might win.
That's a great pitch.
Yeah, I like that. That was very good. Joe Kreiner. I'm business development for Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine is awesome at shipping games. That's
Okay.
one-liner.
Okay.
My name is JC Connors. I run a product for Amazon Lumberyard. Lumberyard, I think, is great at building live, connected, and multiplayer games.
And my name is Jean-Christophe Cimetiere. I go by JC as well. So, and I'm from Unity Technologies. And so Unity is actually more than a game engine. It's now really a platform that enables developers to be successful and manage the life cycle of the game. So not just make the game, but think after you've made the game and during and then after when you go install code.
Yeah, that's exactly the intention for this panel, to discuss that. But before we switch to this, now, what if I ask you for have a bit more fun, especially for the people with the media badges? Lots of people with media badges, that's nice. What is your engine is worst at? So that's again a one-liner. So what is your engine is worst at? If we go backwards.
All right, that's a really difficult one because there's nothing we're really bad at. Well, the worst thing today is really shipping games on the web. Web player, just plugins are dead almost.
We'll discuss that as well.
Well, that's currently that would be what I would say. Shipping games for the web. We can elaborate later.
Yeah, I have this in the notes.
I think Lumberyard's also pretty great today, but what I hear from developers is they want to deeply customize engines. So we want to spend a lot more time making Lumberyard more modular so that developers can go in, rip stuff out, add their secret sauce, just change it to what they want to be.
Okay, so those are developers who want to customize the engine instead of making the game. Well, why not?
Well, that's an odd question. I think where we are in the life cycle of Unreal Engine 4, there's not a lot that it's bad at. So I would say smartwatch.
Smartwatch. Okay. Can we count this as an answer? Yeah. So Sinjin, the worst part.
So the way I would describe the worst part of MaxPlay is because we are a new engine with new architectures. We're focused on some different areas like collaborative real-time development, and that is not a well understood production discipline because it really hasn't been available. So I think that what we're doing is introducing new ways for the industry to work. So that's going to, I wouldn't classify it as a worse thing. It's just a challenge, I think, for our entire industry to look at new ways to work and take advantage of efficiencies. So that's a challenge for us, I think. And then the second thing of, the worst is we're an immature engine, so we have less bells and whistles than these guys. So that's an issue for us as you launch new technology.
So you have an opportunity to educate the industry to shift and behave the way the industry is not willing to behave. Yeah, why not? But indeed. So now let's switch to the more serious questions. Let's talk about the industry developments and trends. So as we've already briefly touched, so the industry, especially the leading game engines, are behaving more like platforms or ecosystems, if you will. And so you guys are offering much more than just the basic functionality of game engines, like managing memory and rendering stuff. You're actually offering much, much more. But is it a good thing or a bad thing for the industry and for the user? So Joe, is Unreal an ecosystem actually? And why cannot you just, ship a pack of source code onto the users and that's it? So why do you need to do much more?
Well, I mean, we've certainly built a robust community around Unreal Engine. Things like marketplace support for game developers to buy assets or code snippets, things like that. We have big community around our website and blogs
And
forums
academia.
and sorry, what?
Academia, like
Oh yeah,
in
schools. Yeah, absolutely. We've got an educational program and curriculum for those schools to teach out of. We don't look at Unreal Engine though as kind of forcing game developers into a distribution pipeline or anything like that. We're a tool for other game developers to make their games, and we want to be as community focused as we can around that. But we're not necessarily going down the same path, I think, as
So the focus
some
is
of
in the
other
core.
guys. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now let's hear a different opinion, and that's Lumberyard Game Engine, JC. So Lumberyard is a new player and heavy focus on the services, so completely the opposite of the previous pitch. So what's your take on the services, users?
I actually think, the label of platform, I think it's irrelevant to most game developers. When I talk to game developers, what I hear over and over again is they want to move fast to make a great game. They want to reach tons of fans because acquiring users and reaching users is really hard, and they want to make money. And I think historically, game engines always define themselves by the first part. How do we help developers move fast by giving them great workflows and robust tools? We take a contrarian opinion, which is that game technology should help game developers succeed, which for us includes making money. Which is why we give away our engine for free.
Okay.
And it also includes reaching and connecting millions of players together, which we do through AWS integration.
Right.
And
So
Twitch.
the platform approach.
Services, platform. I would say those are services, or those are even tools. I'm not sure whether the label actually matters.
Okay. We'll ask the crowd here later on about if they care. Now, Jean-Christophe, so Unity went from the tool for indies up to the development platform, I think, with a heavy focus on the services. Do Unity users actually need all the services?
Well, certainly not all users need all services, but what we found out is, I think the core of the engine, providing tools to deliver rendering power and then flexibility and working fast, iterating, is essential. I mean, you can build as much services around to provide user acquisition and monetization and analytics. If your core is not delivering, it doesn't make sense. So the core engine, and I agree, this is kind of the foundation of enabling the developers to build great stuff, delight users, and do it fast. So that's one thing. But what we've heard from many developers, and not just the smallest, but the small guys, of course, if you're a 2-3 person shop, you can't really spend time looking at what are the best advertising networks, what are the best analytic solutions. So having that built into Unity provides ways to basically check a box, integrate a bunch of services. You want to do multiplayer, you can integrate that as well in a way that it's really part of the package that you have access to.
The ecosystem or the platform.
But you have a choice. It's like, if it's there, if it fits your needs, if it's what you want to do, it's super easy. You get it. It's part of the package. And then you can run with it. If you feel like you need something else, you can extend. You can use third-party solution, combine the best of breed. And if you're a more advanced team or studio, you can actually customize, go into the source code, and then do your own thing, create your own pipeline on top of it. So the point is providing a framework where we cover most of the life cycle of creating a game with the core features, and then you can combine whatever you need on top of it, replace things if they don't fit your need.
Okay, that kind of makes sense, at least for me. Hopefully for... Yeah, I can see understanding in their eyes. So yeah. Sinjin, what's your take? A tool versus service model?
Well, I think at our core, as we look kind of into the future, maybe a little similar to JC and Amazon. I think that there is, this is intuition, right? I think that there is an untapped opportunity for an architecture and a platform that actually is a true cloud-enabled platform that would provide an integrated opportunity for developers to work and have their community part of the process and actually part of the game itself, and both pre and post distribution. So to the extent that maybe 5 years from now there are 10 or 15 million developers in the world, and there are 100, 200, 300 million game enthusiasts, to actually have an integrated opportunity, an ecosystem, if you will, for developers to interact with their fans, their consumers, their community, and for developers to have an integrated community to help themselves make games, provide expertise, and exchange knowledge. That's a really powerful concept. And it doesn't exist today, but my sense is that as we look into the future and look at stuff that's going on with mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, traditional platforms today, it's really frickin' complicated. And to the extent that can be integrated between these different constituencies, that has a really powerful emotional appeal to me. And that's kind of where we're looking out in the future.
This sounds interesting. It sounds like you're trying to solve all the industry problems like with a single take. We'll see how it goes.
You got to swing big and swing hard.
Yeah, but since we started talking about the future, so what's the next development on your service roadmaps? Like, we've discussed about like going and solving the problems, but what else can game engines do for the users? Like, what doesn't exist today? Obviously, all the game engine users, which are game developers, want help, like with publishing, marketing, obviously money, so venture investment, I know Kickstarter, or maybe you would want to be a booking agency between stores, hardware vendors, and talent, since, you know all the teams, and that's what the money guys, for example, don't know. Or maybe something else. So, who's ready to open up the roadmap? For the services, only for the services, for this moment.
I'd like to start because I'd like to continue on the idea Sinjin brought, which is the collaboration idea. It's, we are all better off if the world is having more creators and more creators. So that's why we actually try not to talk anymore about just developers or game developers, because in the process of building games, the developer is the one that is kind of the most technical, putting things together, but it's just one role in the process. And so, like, the true artists, the storytellers, people that have the ideas, the game creators in their mind, they have a great idea, but they will never be able to do it. So how can we solve that problem where we actually get them together on a platform or on a place, virtual place, where they can start collaborating, exchanging, building, prototyping, and all the way to shipping.
That's a very, very good problem to solve.
For us, we're looking at that very deeply, and we're putting pieces together. So we are covering more and more personas in the process of building games, and we're trying to make them work together in a way that makes sense for everyone.
Like the jobs marketplace?
The jobs marketplace is one place where people can find other talents, and then a collaboration platform that we're building that is really super simple but kind of embedded in the
embedded. So right now you can search for the assets in your project directory. If you don't kind of find the assets, like there is a search to the marketplace, and next button is like make me a logo or like that.
Well, for the search to the marketplace is not fully integrated, but that's the idea. And the collaboration feature where you can share your source code across your team and manage a team working together on the same source code is something that is in beta and integrated in the tool. So we're really going there. I'm not saying we've solved and we cracked the whole thing. There's still a lot to learn, and especially as we bring the less technical people and all the other kind of personas that are super critical to making great games, whatever platform you're looking at.
Okay, solving the talent problem, especially non-technical talent. Check.
It's always been important to us at Epic. I think Unity kind of was leading in usability. When they came onto the scene, they opened up game development to another wave of people that otherwise wouldn't have gotten into it. And we've taken that to heart in Unreal Engine quite a bit as well with our Blueprints visual scripting system. Essentially allows artists and what used to be a non-technical game designer to actually prototype code or prototype gameplay and actually make gameplay. I've seen game designer, non-technical people ship games.
But you have that, and we're talking about what you're going to solve next.
Yeah, sure. Well, just adding on to that. But I think for Epic, what's next for us is a big focus on VR, and we're very early days in the VR ecosystem. There are a myriad of things that we can do to increase performance and get more to photoreal in a VR frame rate environment. But we're also focusing on extending the engine into non-gaming things like linear movie production and capturing digital human performance and
exactly. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, I figured.
What's in movie shift of the game engines for the casual guys can they be? But that's next. And so I understand that you don't have that much of a focus on the services. So. Right. So the service roadmap then.
Yeah, I'm going to go in a little bit different of a direction, which is to describe that there's a massive shift happening today in gaming. What started out as a very simple relationship between game makers and players, where by making a great game you could succeed, has changed dramatically. And now what you see in the gaming industry is that you've seen an evolution that went from people huddled over a Miss Pac-Man machine to people sitting on the couch playing Mario Kart to LAN parties. And now we live in a world where players, spectators, broadcasters, cosplayers, fan fiction writers, gaming has become this massive lifestyle. And you can just see it. It's not something we can imagine happening. It is happening. 32 million people watch the League of Legends championships. 100 million people every month watch Twitch, 35% of which are on mobile. This represents a huge shift in the world that game developers have to live and think and build games for. And when you see all these players and gaming becoming a lifestyle and people connecting to games outside of the actual game itself, then that creates a need not just to create a great game, but how do you connect all those people together? How do you create content for them outside of the game?
You make a streamer's booking agency built into the game engine.
Well, maybe, and I think so.
Imagine you're coding a game and there is a button like book me a streamer.
Yeah, and
I'd like the tip button in the engine as well.
Yeah, tip, that'd be great too.
Tip, yeah, donate, why not?
But buy a t-shirt right there.
Buy a t-shirt, nice.
And I think I think this has always been human nature to want to connect and I think that when you've seen technology evolve, like when the cloud became more available and cheap, game developers were finally able to let people connect together on that massive scale. And I think going forward, if you fast forward 5 years, you're going to see the cloud connect more and more people together in different ways. You're going to see it enable more types of content, more types of game genres. Just it's going to be a radical change it already is a radical change to how game developers have to approach it.
And Amazon Lumberyard gonna...
Yeah, obviously we're investing very heavily in not just making a great client game engine, a AAA game engine, because what the other JC said is true, that matters a lot, but also investing very heavily in cloud integration and Twitch integration, because we hear game developers are building a lot of undifferentiated muck today around back-end infrastructure and scalable servers and persistence, and that's really painful, and we aspire to take a lot of that pain away.
I still hear streamers booking agency built into the game engine. I don't know you, but that's what I heard. Sinjin, what's your take?
I'll follow up with JC, and I know this is a game conference and everything, but we have a little bit different take in that with what we're seeing with VR and AR over the next year or two, the amount of interactive development that's happening in other verticals is staggering. So when you think about what's going to happen in education, in government services, in medical simulations, the number of developers who are traditionally I made games, guess what? There are going to be 3 or 4 other verticals that are as big as games that are going to be popping up over the next 2 years. So when we think about a service roadmap, at least for us, right, because we're kind of the new guys, and we've taken a little bit different approach in that we're structuring what we're doing as a really well-developed REST API where the services that may be required in other verticals can be easily plugged in and integrated. So I suspect we'll be a little less full service sort of feature integration, the way Unity might be. We'll provide, a second party recommendation for, an ad revenue network. We'll provide out of the box solutions for physics and, animation engines that are world class. But the way we're approaching services is more of, we're providing an architecture that is flexible and open and modifiable from the top of the tech stack all the way down into the runtime to be able to get into the runtime and modify that. So we can't build everything fast enough to catch up. So what we're doing is we're going, here is an open architecture that is going to really provide flexibility across a multitude of verticals.
Like integrating myriad of SDKs with just a single checkbox.
Right, and we don't know, right? So you don't know how eye tracking telemetry is going to be used in the field of medical. We just know it's going to be hugely valuable. So we want to make sure that people in the medical industry that want to take eye tracking data out of a VR headset or an augmented reality headset and use it to manipulate the experience of a consumer is massively important. So we're approaching it from that, in that we're saying we don't know what developers are going to need to do. So let's provide them an architecture in which that flexibility exists. That's kind of how we're approaching it.
It's also the way Epic looks at it as well. I mean, we build Unreal Engine fairly monolithically. It has all of the features that you would need to ship a game.
But you know what developers need to do because you have internal game studios.
Right, but we aren't experts in, app monetization or ad networks, and we are not the class leaders in that. So we have a plugin architecture that allows developers to choose what they think is the best solution. Or in the cases Sinjin's mentioning, new technology that we are not choosing to support at Epic because we're not
right. But everybody. I have a secret here. Everybody supports plugins. That's and that's kind of essential for the tool to be pluginable.
But there's some big differences in the technology up here and how much they rely on those plugins to provide functionality into the engine. Epic looks at it as we provide almost all of the features that you need, and then plugins are kind of things that we're not experts in or don't own the IP for, right? And that's it.
Oh, okay. This is going around the plugins, Let's speak actually about the not plugins thing, about the core, and. I would actually ask this question to the spec audience. So, what about the core feature set of the modern game engines? Do we actually care about the plugins and the services and the potential extensions, or do you actually care more about the core feature set? Do you have an opinion? Otherwise, I'll ask these guys again. They're gonna talk again. You have a chance to ask a question. No. So you don't care about the core, or you still?
Well, I'll throw something out about the core, right? So one of the things that's interesting is, and that this is really what we're focused on, is the core, and by the core, what I mean is, what is the low-level rendering architecture to be able to get as many frames per second as possible, right? And then there's single-threaded, there's functional multi-threaded, and then there is the ability to do fully data parallel N-core architecture threading. And so the ability to maximize the number of frames per second that a developer can get given any X amount of content is a big deal. So I think as we look at VR and AR and the requirements that those environments are now putting on us as engine makers, if we're not as a group looking at how do we deliver to you guys the ability to do 10 times better the frame rate than you can do today, we're not doing our jobs. So we need to come up with engines that run 10 times faster than our engines run today.
Okay, so
that's the reality.
MaxPlay core is the rendering thingy, right?
Well, I'm just talking about what's important for developers looking out over the next 3 years.
Okay, so what's core about, actually we've spoken about Unreal, the whole Unreal is a core, or, right? What's core for the game, for the Unreal game
Yeah,
engine.
I suppose the core is the engine.
Of course, the engine, right?
But I think, can I jump in? Which
yeah.
is that I think engines started when developers realized they were building the exact same thing again and again and again. If you went back 15 years ago and you said, hey, should physics be part of an engine?
No.
Developers would be like, no, why? We're like, that's fine.
They were
And I
making
think
2D games like
Right, exactly. and that's, from my perspective, what I hear is that we're hitting a point again where developers are building a lot of the same things again and again and again, now around back-end infrastructure, around multiplayer. Like, we're hearing the exact same pain points, and I think if you fast forward 5 years and you ask developers whether those pieces, like services, back-end infrastructure, scalable multiplayer, should be part of a game engine, if you said you didn't have them, the developers would look at you like if I told you I don't have physics and more animation in my engine today.
Actually, that's a good take about the networking and the backend thing. That's a good take. I mean, like, you cannot ship a casual game these days on the mobiles without, like, the multiplayer functionality. You wouldn't be able, like, to benefit from the traffic and all that and virality, right?
Yeah, and not just mobile. I mean, I think 85% of top PC and console games feature multiplayer now. So, like, this is not true. This is happening across the board. This is such a critical feature to succeeding in games today that developers who are just relying on single-player only games are the minority.
Yeah, okay, it makes sense that the core is much thicker these days.
I agree, and the rendering, the frame rate is essential, and I don't know that we're working as a group, but we're all working all together. Yeah, but definitely solving that is essential, and optimizing to deliver the power to get the greatest experience is essential, and clearly multiplayer, whether it's real time or more asynchronous, it's essential. It's a social aspect that you mentioned.
Right.
I want to play with my friend. It's much more fun when you play with other people, and if these people happens to be your friend, that's even better. So clearly we are in agreement. We're racing toward the same goals, which ultimately is great for the games more than the games industry. People who are making experiences, because as we are competing, we're gonna challenge each other and then do better.
The reason why I even came up with this question is, I mean, like, look at your announcements. You don't announce, like, we fixed like bugs or like we improved rendering. You all announce services, like new things that are outside of what you can call a core. And now when I'm asking about the core, you say, no, the core is actually the core. But still, on the news, there is like a services. So that's an interesting balance, that to attract the user, you need to offer him extra. But when he jumps on your tool, he actually assumes the core is there and is very solid.
We announce new features all the time. I don't know, maybe it doesn't bubble up into the games press, but we just released Sequencer, which is our new movie cinematics tool inside the engine. It's a complete rewrite from what we've had traditionally. And it's enabling new industries to use our engine for things. So, you have the car industry starting to use Unreal because it's easy for them to use now, the movie industry and all this kind of things.
And that's actually a great feature. So let's touch it right now. So the movie things. However, we're not at GDC or the movie conference, we're at Casual Connect. So how, and I mean, like, I've seen announcement about movies and cinemas from Unity as well. And like, how would casual game developers benefit from this movie/cinema/hardcore AAA rendering thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of ways game developers in this room will directly benefit. One, the improvement in rendering performance and quality. But also that cinematic tool that we released allows the game developers in this room to do their own in-game cinematics in minutes rather than hours. It really cuts down the amount of time to produce that kind of thing.
So hidden object game is going to be cinematic.
Well, I mean, everybody has some of that here and there, right? You need those kind of tools to do those things. And rather than outsourcing that stuff for not for casual games, but for the average Borderlands or something, rather than outsourcing the in-game movie production, now the studio will be able to do it easily internally.
We'll see. So next year, I'll ask everybody, like, have you created a cinematic or like a trailer on your own?
Well, I see another benefit of the actually experiences being creating outside of gaming, and for the game developer industry, the main benefit is that there's massive investment, and so yes, game engines will become better, but it's also many job opportunities for those people who know how to create those 3D complex experiences, because the movie industry coming to creating VR experiences, they probably know how to create great stories, but then producing those stories in VR in 3D environment, they have no clue how to do it.
Yeah, if
and
you're-
the Unity guys, the Unreal, and the other guy, hey, I can do that. Okay, hire me. And then that's a great opportunity for many
Okay,
of
so
them.
you're saying that casual games gonna improve by very clever people jumping on the board and helping out the folks in this room to...
They will benefit from all the massive investment and improvement the game engines are delivering to be able to appeal for the movie industry, you know, the fidelity, the quality.
A larger game development community in general, and people that otherwise wouldn't have the skill set to get a job in the games industry. Maybe they end up doing an architectural pre-visualization for a company that gets them experience in a game engine, and then they can make the transition into making video games.
Yeah, so now you see how the game engines actually see you guys. Like, we've been talking about you, about like the developers. This is the, like, when they're developing the product, this is how they actually view you, like the portrait, you know, like everybody has a portrait, like you have a portrait of your players of your game. This is how they portrait you.
We literally have posters on the wall about personas
in a T position
of different types of developers that we're trying to write software for. That's the way it goes.
Okay. So I guess you don't have that much users if you like they all fit on a single wall.
Well, we don't have a very big office.
Okay. Right.
I think, I want to add something. I think what all game developers are dealing with is an explosion of display complexity is what's actually happening. Some of that is being driven by movie companies or what's happening in the television industry, some of which is being driven by interactive, but developers today are faced with the oncoming onslaught of VR, AR, HDR, 4K, 8K. You know, Retina, Apple did it with Retina a few years ago. This stuff will land on mobile. This will land in front of people's PCs. And so the challenge that I think the game engines have is how to design underlying rendering that works for all those devices regardless. And then the challenge that game developers have is which ones are going to be important. Like the other day I talked to a game developer who said, you know, Apple is to get games featured, you know, Metal graphics is really important now. You know, so we implemented Metal and GMEM, so we have our full, you know, PBR deferred lighting pipeline running on iOS devices to help developers get featured. And so I think that this is going to continue to happen at a faster and faster pace based on what I'm seeing, and developers are going to just have to pick and choose which ones are going to help make them more successful.
That's an interesting take. However, on a few panels and talks in other rooms, people are saying, you know what, like, if you want to be a successful game developer, you have to release your games on the devices that are available in the market where lots of people live, like China, Southeast Asia. And like, there is a secret, they still have 480p devices, not exactly 4K or 2K or even 1080p. And this are the devices in people's hands, like the device they used to play games.
Well, but it's interesting, right? It goes both ways. So, you know, if you look at Samsung, right, their 8-core phone is not available here. It's available over there. So they have, you know, smartphone for architecture, if you have a rendering engine, a game engine that can actually take advantage of 8 cores, you know, in a data parallel way, you can do things on that phone that can't be done on phones in this country because they're just 4 core. You know, so it kind of cuts both ways. And the trick for us, right, as a team up here is we have to think globally and be able to deal with that stuff. So you know, it's casual games. I mean, it's going to be different in different parts of the world.
Exactly. So that's the balance, like the flagship things and the mere mortals. It's about that.
It's about deciding where you want to go, because I think if you're choosing for the high-end experiences, targeting the flagship phones, great. But you're going to design whatever the engine do. You have to design your game and experience that will fit that kind of hardware. Because if you don't take that into consideration, you will design high-end graphics, super nice rendering, but then you're going to be totally crushed on smaller devices. And so if you want to be targeting the masses, then you start, okay, this is my target, and then I'm going to design for that target. And the engine is supposed to help you do that. But at the end of the day, you do have to make a choice on, the texture and the quality of your graphics, and that's not magic.
That's actually a great tip. You should be better as a game developer. Yeah, you'll help the industry this way. Let's actually talk about something we've touched already. The web gaming. I mean, there used to be a Unity web plugin, and that's how people used to play games on the web. Like, people go to the office, there's no boss, I'll play a game. Then there was Flash, and there still kinda is Flash, maybe. I mean, people still talking about the Flash in this conference, so probably Flash does exist, not in all the browsers, but like in people's mind. Probably that's the tool they use. But actually, do you care about web games? And do you care about web games?
Who's building a web game?
Who's building
just
a web
actually
game?
Curious to see. Raise show of hands.
Right. So is it Flash? It's Flash. Everybody? Yeah. See, all the people who raise hands like Flash.
Flash will be disabled in Chrome really soon, so that's kind of the end of the plugin era, and
Right.
that's a good thing. It's happening maybe a little too fast, but that's a good thing. I think WebGL is definitely the promising technology, and it's a little early to have fully featured super advanced games, but we've seen interesting successes like Top 11, a really nice football, well, soccer you guys call it, but real football simulation. I'm French, so they shipped on WebGL, and they're super happy. I mean, it just works. It gives them a broad distribution, and that complements the scenario where they are players. They can play on their phone, they can play on PCs, they can play on Facebook or on a standalone, well, not some, but outside of Facebook web version. So for many game developers, it's just one more channel to really reach their audience.
So Unity kinda cares about web games, and WebGL is probably like the way to go. What about you guys? Do you care about web games? WebGL, something else?
We don't really.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good answer.
It's not that we don't like them. It's just not our focus, right? We're much more interested in, if you think about what's all over the news besides the Republican convention, it's Pokemon Go, right? So if you look at the consciousness of consumers today, it's fundamentally been changed in 3 days. I mean, in 3 days, the amount of people who know or think they know what augmented reality is has exponentially changed, and that's going to have that cat's out of the bag, and so we're thinking about that stuff.
Okay, Pokemons. Everybody thinks about Pokemons.
you can actually thank Unity as well, because it's made with Unity.
Well, I know. It's not lost on me that it wasn't claimed.
It was, it's all over. But what other platforms? I know that, the platform, like each new platform is obviously a thing for people in this room, like just all the engines are multi-platform, like let's just take our game, push into this new fresh or whatever microwave with a gamification thing, and it's all gonna work. So we have like, new things like whatever, TVs have been coming for a while and are still coming, or wearables, watches, like when you go to Mobile World Congress Barcelona, 5G is coming, IoT, whatever. Do you anticipate some new platform gonna come up anytime soon that you're gonna care about, except for Pokemons?
I mean, the growth in platforms now is around VR and potentially AR. You have Google with Daydream, and new VR platforms popping up. Seems like one a week sometimes. As engine providers, we're having to support all those technologies, and that's kind of where the growth, I think, is in the platform side. The interactive TVs or smart TVs, that seems to be kind of leveling off. There's not as much interest in that.
Maybe they're going to be suppliers for the glasses.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly there are some companies that want to bring new platforms to market, but they're a ways out.
You'll wait them to actually bring that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. What about actually you guys? Do you care about VR? I mean, casual VR? Huh? I see the VR booth is out there, and like there is a huge VR track, so probably you do.
Well, I think to to your question about do people care about casual VR, I think my sense is the answer to that is what can you make? What can you do with it? So I think that, as developers, right, as we as a community are able to develop compelling content, that's going to accelerate or not, those experiences. So if consumers actually see deep, rich, compelling content, right, we'll call it the analog to the Pokemon Go, right? So it's like if you can get some like lightning out of a bottle that snaps somebody's, I got to have a next VR, I got to do the Daydream thing, I got to do this. Why? Because some piece of content was developed and it blows people away.
Yeah, I mean, if the next Pokemon Go is on Daydream-enabled phones next year, that drives adoption and gets rid of the low-end problem, and all of a sudden you have a complete change in the ecosystem of VR. What Google did with Cardboard was, I look at Cardboard as an evangelization tool, not necessarily a real platform, and then followed it up with something that's much more powerful and has a controller. So it's real support, but it's intended to be addressed to a mass audience.
Right. The genius of Pokemon Go is that it's not that demanding on an engine per se, which is fine. Niantic Labs spent a crapload of money on Ingress, right? All the technology that's behind Pokemon Go is Ingress. And it's all that location-based logic. It's all the infrastructure that Google has. And then they layered on an IP. And it blew up. So that's not the only time that's going to happen. Somebody else is going to figure out, but don't underestimate the amount of work that the Niantic guys put in for 3 years on Ingress that then they layered Pokemon Go on top of.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I think that's a great point, Sinjin, which is that at the end of the day, look, I think anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen with VR and AR is lying to you because it's still really early. There's a lot of time for these killer apps to get made. And I think at the end of the day, game developers, all of our platforms support VR today. They're all great choices for VR. And I think that your developers are going to have the same problem, which is like, great, they've made a game. How do you get it out there to hit tons of fans? How do you build the back-end infrastructure? How do you connect people together like Pokemon Go did, where as much work went into all the back-end muck and the undifferentiated stuff players don't notice as went into the actual client app? I think that's going to be the same problem regardless of what VR, AR, or future platform you're developing for.
So the future streamers wouldn't be the guys with a webcam, they would be the guys with a shoulder cam, right? Yeah, that's probably a great idea for another service. So since we still have a bit of time, let's actually talk about something that was announced, something that actually everybody cares in this room, but something that is very rarely talked about. Let's talk about money, but not the money you guys earn, but the money you guys pay them. So what is the fair price for a game engine today? Can you actually ask for money upfront, or is service model like the right way, or the only?
I'll go first since my answer is the simplest. Zero. No, look.
Since you can afford it.
Yeah. Game development is incredibly hard. Before I was at Amazon, I ran a game studio where at the end of the year, if I made like 5-10% profit margin, which was very few years, that was a huge success. How often do you read about layoffs and company games that underperformed and studio closures? Even big companies, the EAs of the world, the Ubisofts of the world, like these are not high margin businesses. These are razor thin margins. So I think in terms of talking to developers, there's no developer that really doesn't need their next game to be a success. There's very few developers actually. So I think giving the technology away for free and then letting developers pay for whatever services they want to use, I think that's not just a fair way of doing it. I don't want to take your profit. I know how hard it is to come by. And so I think that's a great model for developers and, obviously for Amazon, but, we want to help you succeed and make money and pay yourselves.
Yeah. Joe, I guess you have a different pitch.
Well, Epic's always collected royalties on Unreal Engine historically, and now these days we give the engine away for free. You can download Unreal.
That's an evolution, like from a 6-7 figure to...
Yeah, no, it was a huge change, and largely that was brought about by us studying those groups of developers up
portraits,
on the wall. Yeah,
depositions, right?
and figuring out, what made sense for the industry. We decided to make Unreal Engine free, including the source code, which at the time seemed insane, but actually has worked out really well. It's built a really great community. But Epic collects royalties only on commercial products, so it enables a lot of people to do cool things with the engine. Allows them to invest what money they do have in that upfront development and make the best product they can with our technology, and then we profit when they do.
Well, you also give away money. You have a fund.
Yeah, we do dev grants as well. So we actually give money with no strings attached to people doing cool things with Unreal Engine. Again, to build that community and to highlight the successes that come out of that community when we see them coming. The beauty of our business model is Epic is actually vested in the success of projects using Unreal Engine, which means like we want to support our customers, we want to market them. I act as a game agent in a lot of cases for our licensees, and help them find publishing deals, help them find marketing, all that kind of thing, because we're invested in their success.
Well, I just see the beauty from the game engines and tools for taking lots of money from the devs, actually giving away money to devs, so they are successful. I think that's the only way to go. Jean-Christophe, so Unity has some fresh changes with the pricing, and also there is an evolution. So how did Unity evolve?
Yeah, so we have the free version, and we've had that free version for a long time. Like, we want the technology to be available to any creator at the beginning. You don't have any resource to invest on the tech. You can start with the free engine, and when you reach a certain amount of revenue, 100K a year or 200K depending on the license, then you're supposed to subscribe to the license. And the license, we introduced a new pricing, which is kind of in the middle, starting at $35 a month, and then the full product is $125 a month, which is a fairly reasonable investment, and it's a flat price. Whether you make millions or just hundreds, it's going to be the same amount of money that you spend on your infrastructure. So
yes, so I guess
predictable and fairly affordable.
I guess you wish you had a royalty model with a Pokemon Go.
No, I wouldn't say that, because we've chosen that business model. It's been working very well for now, and then even when we look at the competition that has really upfront free products, we haven't seen a decline. Unity licensing business is actually doing fairly well. However, we're thinking about different monetization, and that's also one of the reasons we grew the advertising network. So developers can actually choose to monetize their game on mobile only for now, and then we generate revenue through that angle as well, which in a way is also a good way to sustain that pretty cheap and fair pricing on the licensing, where not all our revenue is coming from the same source, and we can balance from different directions, but ultimately continue to invest on the core engine, which is the value, and then add services like we described to enable collaboration, to enable analytics, to enable a bunch of things that are part of the life cycle.
It's actually very fun for me to hear that up to this very moment, we've been agreeing on pretty much everything. Yes, this is important. Yes, this is what we're doing. Like, we could have hugged and, yes. But the pricing thing, like, each of you guys, you have very different, opinions of how do you do that. How would MaxPlay do that, since we don't know anything about it?
So the first thing is, I think that, the one thing that I've seen is the pricing is unsettled. It's complicated. It's always changing. People are trying to figure out, well, if we do this, then we do that, or, we give this away and then we add stuff on, which is fine. I think we, as a group, are still, struggling with a shifting marketplace and, shifting business models. And, our current sense is that where things are going feel more like a subscription enterprise pricing model is probably where we're going to be focused, where it's not about upselling on features and functions. It's more about, X number of dollars a month per seat. That's what it costs. There's no back end. You're going to get a reasonable amount of, cloud storage service, all that kind of stuff, there will have to be, charges for heavy users of the cloud, because otherwise you go out of business as a service provider. But I think the way the industry is going and the way we're going as a business is we're becoming an enterprise business in general. So probably subscription models is where we're going to be.
Subscription plus a la carte option for enterprises.
A little bit,
Okay,
but I think as a group we need to simplify where we are, but we're still experimenting.
Following up with the simplification thing here, we've also touched that some of the users need just like the very basic things and not all of the services or very little of that. Did you guys think about unbundling? Like, here's the core and here are the extras. Like,
yeah, that's a great question, and in our case the answer is yes. We're actually a command-driven headless architecture, so our platform itself, the underlying platform, actually could have the entire editor removed, and you can actually work with what's behind it in terms of the ability to write your own product on top of our platform. So, and that specifically has been done not for necessarily the game industry, but for other vertical enterprise applications that maybe want to be written for virtual reality or augmented reality or other things. So I think that's a big business opportunity.
Okay, so unbundling is not for the basic users, but for more advanced users.
In our case, it is. It's more for enterprise software implementations that that game developers aren't really thinking about.
And we're running out of time, but do you have unbundling?
Unbundling,
more unbundling.
From a pricing standpoint, no. We have a bundle. This is the value. This is what we deliver. It's the sum of all the pieces is what you think is the valuable things. You may not use everything, but you will use multiple things. And yes, we have options. You can grow. You can get more capacity and so on. But I think from a pricing standpoint, it would make it so much complicated. From a technology standpoint, we keep the engine and the different pieces very modular, so you can remove one, replace one, and then this is your decision. So that's kind of the approach we have.
Okay.
Yeah, similarly, one of the reasons we give out the source code is because developers tell us all the time they want to use pieces of it in other pieces because they think they can do it better, or they want to create some technological innovation. So, I think it's great for our customers because they can just take whatever pieces they want out of the code and use it, and they don't have to pay for it.
I mean, Epic's attitude is we want to keep our pricing structure as simple as possible. One tier, it's free. Pay us royalties if you ship.
Free is a good price.
Yeah, free is a good price. I can't imagine a world in which we started charging for special, for certain features or unbundling. We want game developers that are using Unreal Engine to have the same tools that Epic Games uses to make our games. I just can't imagine us ever doing that.
Okay, so we don't have time for questions, and we have 1 minute left. I'm gonna use that minute to the full 59 seconds. So my favorite question: define success for your technology. That's a hard question. It wasn't on the outline. That's a surprise for all of you.
Millions of creators using the product and shipping fun stuff. That's success for us.
Okay.
For us, it's delighting. One customer makes us successful. If we can put a smile on your face or save you. We had one developer who said, wow, GameLift, which is our service that lets you deploy and scale session-based multiplayer games in minutes, told us, wow, this could save me millions of dollars because I don't have to build a team, hire, and do that. Like, that's what I want to do. I just want to make every game developer we deal with who's using our technology, smile and say, thank you.
Delighting million customers, delighting one customer, and next.
I mean, success for me is walking the show floor at E3 and seeing the breadth of games that are using Unreal Engine. This year there were 80 games on the show floor that were using Unreal. Anything from a very small team in the indie mega booth up to AAA games like Street Fighter and Days Gone and Gears of War. That to me is success.
So you knew the correct answer to this question. This is not fair. Sinjin, do you have a different option?
In addition to all those things,
Okay, this is how we go.
For us, right? Yeah. For us, what success would be for us a year from now would be to actually truly have a global connected community of developers, multidiscipline developers, working in our platform and making great stuff. So, we're interested in seeing that dynamic and providing that dynamic.
Okay, and we're over time, and now you should clap hard.